Hello everyone, hope you're all having a nice day, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at Yveltal Single Strike, a great new budget attacker that just came out in Fusion Strike. So Yveltal is a pretty good card in my opinion. It's not the greatest single strike Pokemon there is, but it is pretty decent for a budget deck. So what its main attacks, it has the attacks Dark Cutter, which only does 50 damage, and then Single Strike Wings 110, which is kind of our main attack for the rest of the game. And then the characteristics of Yveltal Single Strike is that it has 130 HP, which isn't terribly great. It does have resistance to fighting, so Urshifu has a little bit more trouble knocking you out. Weakness to lightning isn't too much of a problem. And then retreat cost of 2 is a little bit annoying, but we do play air balloons and ways to switch out. So what are the characteristics of a single strike deck, and why is this just a good deck for a new player? So why I think this is a good deck for a new player in general is that it's really good for combos. It just teaches you about how to play the game rather. And it's also a good pre-deck before moving on to something a lot more expensive, like Gengar or Umbreon, which are really strong competitive decks. But Single Strike Yveltal is kind of just something you can build beforehand if maybe you have all the Single Strike cards, but you don't have Umbreon or Gengar yet. So you just want to try something out that's pretty cheap. And this is just a regular rare from Fusion Strike, so it's not that expensive. So how does this work? So Yveltal has the attack Single Strike Wings that does 110 damage. And then the way we power the energies up and let us do more damage is with the Houndoom. So Single Strike Houndoom allows you to search your deck for a Single Strike energy and then attach it to another Single Strike Pokemon. And if you do, then you have to put 220 damage on that Pokemon. We're not terribly concerned about the damage counters because with only 130 HP, we should be being knocked out every single turn really, so the damage counters isn't too much of a problem. So then what does Single Strike Energy do? For those of you who are unfamiliar, as long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides either Fighting or Dog type energy, and it allows you to do an additional 20 damage. So our Single Strike Wings attack will be doing say 130 if you have a single strike energy attached to it, or it'll be doing 150 if you have 2, and then it'll be doing 170 if you have all 3, which is ideal because 170 is a 2-hit KO. It is slightly unrealistic to say you'll be doing 170 every single time, but we do have ways of keeping it consistent, and the Intelligent Engine in the deck as well really helps us achieve that. So for the deck list, we have 4 Houndour, just because Houndour is mighty important. You don't have to play 4 if you only have 3, for example. There are common though, so it's pretty cheap to get hold of. We then play 3 Houndoom with a Single Strike Roar ability, which is very important. We then play 3 Yveltal, who is our kind of main attacker in the deck. And then we play 2 Stonejourner. Stonejourner has a nice cheap attack called Lance Pulse that does 60 damage if there is a stadium in play. We don't play any stadiums in this deck because I didn't really find enough room for them, and I would rather prioritize an Intelligent Engine. But if you want to add a Single Strike Stadium, there is one called Tower of Darkness that you can put in. But Lance Pulse is just a nice utility, low form of damage output. And then Giga Hammer does 120, so it's slightly bigger base damage than Single Strike Wings. And then what Giga Hammer is really here for is just securing those 2 KOs on tankier VMAX Pokemon is more important, as well as being able to hit stuff with weakness such as Eternatus. So that's why we play Stonejourner. We also play 4 Sobble with the Keep Calling attack. Allows us to find more Sobble if we need it to. We have the Drizzile, the Shady Dealings, an amazing card that says when you vault from Sobble, you may search your deck for any trainer card. So sometimes you'll have to use this to find maybe an Urn of Vitality or even just a draw supporter. So what Drizzile is essentially acting as a way of finding a draw supporter if we have a way to find Drizzile. So it's a 90 HP Pokemon, so we can use either Evolution Incense or Level Ball. And then moving on a bit, we have Inteleon with a Shady Dealings ability that says it's basically Drizzile's ability, but you get to find 2 trainer cards instead of just 1. It's also a Stage 2 Pokemon, so it's pretty tanky and less susceptible to spread damage. You can play more Inteleon if you wish. I'm just playing the 1 because it's been fine so far in testing. But feel free to change the amount of counts of Drizzile and Inteleon you play. So then we have 4 Evolution Incense, just to be able to find our Houndoom. And then we have 4 Level Ball, just to be able to find all our basics. We then have one ordinary rod to shuffle back in our Yveltal or Stonejourner, because we only play 5 attackers and we will start to lose all the basic dark energies, and we need to have at least one way of shuffling them back in. We then play 4 quick ball, just because it's important to be able to find Sobble, Yveltal, and Houndour, as well as the fact that Level Ball cannot find our Yveltal or Stonejourner. So it's important that we play quick ball. We then play 2 switch. That'll just allow us to maneuver around our Pokemon a little bit easier, especially with Stonejourner's second attack, Giga Hammer. So during the next turn, this Pokemon can't use Giga Hammer, so you just have to switch out or pay the retreat cost. 4 Urn of Vitality, which is a really important card, allows us to shuffle 2 single strike energy cards from the discard pile back into our deck. So after Yveltal has been knocked out and you've lost 1 or 2, even 3 single strike energy, you want to be able to constantly reshuffle them back into your deck with the Urn of Vitality. We then play 2 Boss's Orders. Usually with single strike decks, unless you're playing Umbreon, which has a sort of Boss's Orders in the style of its own ability, you can't really afford to play Boss's Orders because you only have, because you're constantly like trying to play Research and Marnie to be able to find your pieces that you need, such as Urn of Vitality. But this list can make room for Boss's Orders because of the Drizzile just evolving up for Sobble. It's an easy way of being able to find it. Then we play 4 Bruno that shove your hand to your deck and then draw 4 cards. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you get to draw 7 instead. So it's a really good supporter. I prefer it to Marnie right now, but that's just because in this particular list, you are playing primarily 1 prize low HP Pokemon. So Yveltal, 130 HP, Stonejourner, 130 HP, and then Houndoom, 130 HP, Drizzile, 90 HP, Sobble, 60 HP. So sometimes you'll have to bench a bunch of basics, and then your opponent might boss one up and then knock it out, and then you can just Bruno, shuffle in, draw 7, and life is good. We then play 4 Research just for the discard your hand, draw 7, standard, really good card. 2 Air Balloon just to allow a little bit more maneuverability around, especially when we don't have more than 1 Yveltal in play. Sometimes we'll have to promote Houndoom, which has a retreat cost of 2. Then we can attach Air Balloon, retreat Houndoom into Yveltal, and use the single strike roar effect. Then of course we play 4 single strike energy and then 5 basic dark energy. So that's a list overall. What would I change about this list personally? Honestly, I think I would increase the amount of either Yveltal or Stonejourner up from 3 and 2 to maybe a 3-3 split or a 4-3 split, just because this deck can sometimes feel like in the late game you're very reliant on hunting down your ordinary rod, and that's kind of important in the deck. Also, with energy counts, I think you could probably get away with playing 1 or 2 more basic dark energies, and then draw supporter wise, maybe a Marnie or 2 would help. But so far I've not needed them, so it's been pretty good. So some strengths of this deck are like why I've decided to pick Yveltal over something like Malamar to play right now is because Yveltal has the fact that it's a dark type basically. So the reason why Gengar and Umbreon are so good in the standard format is, well, one of the main reasons at least, is the fact that they are dark type, and therefore they're hitting weakness on stuff like Mew-VMAX, which is extremely popular and is a pretty good deck. So Yveltal can also take advantage of that. Admittedly, you do need quite a few single strike energies on Yveltal, but it's still a one-hit KO on Mew-VMAX for 3 prize cards, so it's definitely worth pursuing. And of course, your Stonejourner can 2-hit KO their Genesect as well, so it's still pretty good in that department. Anything else about this list? No, that's about it, really. I wouldn't change much else apart from what I mentioned earlier. Any ways of upgrading this deck would probably be into the department of just changing your main attackers to either Gengar or Umbreon, and then cutting down on the Inteleon line as a result. But other than that, this has been Emma Power. I hope you enjoyed this budget deck profile. Bit of a short one today, but it's kind of just straight to the point and explaining kind of what this list is and how it functions. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment section as always.